Hey guys, what's up? This is Nick here, and today I'm going to be redoing a review I did a while back just because I didn't have full experience with that device and I didn't like how some things came out. So we're going to do it again. And today's lucky device is the second generation iPad. Now real quick, I know there hasn't been a ton of content this week. I've been kind of busy with some things for the channel, but I think I'll be good now, just in time for the Apple September keynote, so expect a few tech reviews next week, as well as some other good content on the way. And with all that said, let's begin the review. So the iPad 2 was released in March of 2011, brought a much better form factor than its predecessor with a slightly thinner design, camera, and a processor that lasted support all the way until late 2016. While this iPad was released 8 years ago, it actually doesn't look too outdated in the modern world, with the newer iPads looking practically identical, except a little bit thinner. The design is timeless, to the point where I honestly have to say it's absolutely amazing, and probably my all-time favorite design of any iPad. While it isn't as thin as newer iPads, it'll absolutely fit in the hand just fine with little to no complaints. The display is decently big at 9.7 inches with the resolution of 768 by 1024 and pixel density of 132 pixels per inch. This display unfortunately is non-retina, so it doesn't look as crisp as newer iPads, but it'll be absolutely fine for the average Joe and you're not going to have too many complaints with it. The lower powered screen certainly helps with battery life, which is good considering this iPad already has a pretty big battery size at 6,930 mAh. In my experience, it can last multiple days on standby before dying, and more intensive tasks don't seem to affect it that much. Battery life is going to vary device to device depending how used it's been over the years, and so it's fair to say that not everyone's going to have the same battery life as me, but generally I'd say it'll easily get you through the day with no issue. Below the screen we see the old 30-pin charger, which is nostalgic, although not as convenient as the lightning connector. We also see the old classic home button, which is cool, although you're missing out on Touch ID, so your way of security would have to be a passcode. But since this iPad was released in 2011, 2 years before Touch ID was even a thing, I'm willing to give it a pass. You may be wondering, where's the headphone jack? Well, it's up on the top. It's not a good location for the jack, but hey, at least it has one. Another new addition to this iPad was the camera, which is horribly atrocious. Seriously, the rear sensor comes in at 0.7 megapixels, as well as the ability to shoot video in 720p. Somehow, this camera can't produce anything more than a whole cluster of pixels. If you're getting an iPad, you really shouldn't be using it as a camera because A, it looks funny, and B, your photos are going to turn out awful. Alright, so that's the rear-facing camera, but it also has a front-facing camera with 0.3 megapixels. It's terrible. Now you gotta keep in mind that this was the first iPad to have a camera, and considering that this was only released in 2011, I'm going to give it a pass. Although 5 megapixels would have been nice considering the iPhone 4 used it the year before. But don't forget this was still fairly new tech in 2011, and the camera is actually allowed for some fun features like photo booth. And again, while the camera is horrible, at least it has one, so that's honestly the best thing I can say. And now I'll show some examples from the device so you can judge for yourself. Right now it's being filmed on the iPad 2 and it looks bad. It looks really bad, but technically it is 720p, so who cares? When it comes to technical specifications, the iPad 2 actually starts to fall behind. Everything I said so far has made the iPad 2 sound pretty good. Great design, mediocre display, pretty good battery, sure a bad camera, but it's an iPad, and honestly most of that can't be lived with, right? Unfortunately, this is where the iPad 2 really starts to disappoint. It only features an A5 processor and half a gigabyte of RAM, which is not enough for 2019. These specs are shared with the iPhone 4S, and you probably know how that device ended out. The iPad 2 can only run up to iOS 9.3.5, which is a pretty good amount of support to be honest. But the problem is that the iPad does not have anywhere close to decent performance on iOS 9. Everything is brutally slow, from turning on the device to multitasking. It's mind-blowingly annoying to use. Apple completely destroyed this iPad with the iOS 9 update. The iPad 2 really started to feel slow on iOS 8, but it was still usable. But come 2015 and the release of iOS 9, and this was no longer the case. And this wasn't the only device affected with iOS 9, so it was the 4S, the iPod 5, iPad 3, and the iPad mini, and unfortunately the iPad 2 was also one of those devices affected. So right now in its current state, the iPad 2 is practically unusable, lag its content, and even doing the most simple of tasks is a huge pain, and it shouldn't be the case even if it is an 8-year-old device. Now there are still some benefits to iOS 9. App support isn't actually too bad. You can still find close to modern versions of most apps. Right now the minimum required version of most apps is iOS 10, but that's going to change next week with the release of iOS 13, with the minimum required version going up to iOS 11. And while these apps don't feel outdated right now, that's slowly going to change as time progresses. However, I don't think the app support is worth the performance hit, and for that reason, I'll actually be downgrading this iPad to iOS 8.4.1. It's a pretty simple process that you can do, and in fact, I'll leave a tutorial video in the description if you're interested. And if you're lucky and have an earlier model of the iPad 2, you can downgrade this straight to iOS 6. I might even do a video explaining how you can do it, but no promises. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure if my iPad falls under the category of being an earlier model, but if it is, then I will downgrade this to iOS 6 first, then I'll make a video about iOS 6, and from there I'll upgrade it to iOS 8, which could be a little easier than the current downgrade process. So if you still have an iPad 2 for some reason, I would fully recommend using it on iOS 8, because it balances somewhat modern versions of most apps with a mediocre performance. It's so much more stable than iOS 9. And now we come to the question, is this tablet worth buying? Well, that's a tough question because it really just depends on what you're planning to do on your tablet. If you need a device for games or media streaming, or even a device just for kids, then this device will be just fine. But let's look at pricing because that's important. You can easily find this iPad for as low as $50 and as high as $100. This is on eBay, by the way. But if you're planning on doing more intensive tasks with your tablet, I take a pass on this one. Spend a little bit more money for an iPad 4. I usually see them go for around $75. Or for not much more money, you can buy an iPad Air for only $100. If you have an iPad 2 right now, you'll probably be okay, although you might want to consider downgrading it to iOS 8 as it brings new life into this iPad. And with all that being said, I think I'm pretty much done here. Overall, the iPad 2 is a really cool device, and I'll probably keep this as my daily iPad for maybe another year or so, but it'll be on iOS 8 because iOS 9 is as slow as molasses. Thank you all so much for watching. Expect to see a good amount of content in the next week and possibly maybe this weekend, as well as a special video that I've been promising for months. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. My social media pages are in my channel description in case you guys want to add me. And with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Peace.